I'm going to tell you a little story about a £7,000 DWP fraud case, the Ballymena case. So what happens? It's a real story, it's got a real victim. So our victim is living and working in the UK. She's working a school, a shop, etc. And she's on a spouse's visa paying tax and national insurance. But she's not entitled to benefits, right? Anyway, marital life went very, very wrong. Friends noticed that things were going wrong and things escalate very fast and the police get involved. People act very professionally and domestic violence unit write to the Home Office and this person gets access to universal credit for the first time. Now this was about 5 years ago. She's working and she gets top-up benefits to pay the rent and the bills, and she's got 2 children. Right. Anyway, so in this order from the Home Office, she has 90 days to submit a leave to remain application, which she does, and it's granted later that year. I'll put a couple of images in now. 3 years passes, and the fraud begins. It's not quite what you expect. A random phone call. What's the date on your leave to remain card? And date was October 2nd, 2019. So that's, And then there were a few further questions. And then a few days later, a letter from the DWP arrives. You have failed your habitat residence test. And then another one saying you have passed your habitat residence test. A bit strange, but DWP. Anyway, a few days later, and a third letter arrives. You owe £7,390. Wow. As luck would have it, it was a bank holiday weekend. And I was asked to give some assistance with this. So, sorry, I have to go back to my notes, make sure I get this story right. So, the £7,390, our victim, episode 2, the £7,390 DWP Ballymena fraud. So our victim gets a surprise letter putting a £7,390 in debt with the DWP. It's Easter bank holiday, so she rings me for help. And we look through the letters in her journal. And as usual, they make no sense. But all her payments given by DWP 3 years before have been removed and turned to zero. March to October 2019 have all been erased. 5 months universal credit. So anyway, we had to wait for Monday morning to ring DWP helpline. And basically, the person who rang her up had erased her entitlement to benefits from 3 years earlier. So we scrambled round and we found the letters from the Home Office and the police. And basically it said that the Secretary of State had granted her habitat residence test, which is what they said that she'd failed, and that she had 3 months to apply for leave to remain, and in that time she was entitled to benefits. So we submitted a mandatory reconsideration to Universal Credit. Well, we received letters with a written statement of reasons. They totally ignored the evidence we'd submitted. At this point, mistake becomes fraud by misrepresentation. Now, that's a legal phrase. It's the Section 2 of the Fraud Act. This person had a code name, they're called Office Manager, and passed our complaint, they passed up to a mandatory reconsideration. So at this point, they transmitted the fraud to DWP Debt Recovery, who started taking £81, I believe, a month off of this lady's benefits. And now she's working hard, 30 to 40 hours a week, and she's paying her bills and totally lawful life. But anyway, there's no sign of this mandatory reconsideration, and this situation continues on for a year. And then next Easter, on Easter Saturday, somebody actually looks at the paperwork of the mandatory reconsideration. They decide that they're not going to change their decision, but they do change their decision because they reduced the debt from £7,390 down to £5,007. But they don't tell DWP Debt Recovery. Anyway, I'm Tony, Ant News. I'll give you the next episode tomorrow. So this is the third episode. You might want to watch the first two. I'll put these in a playlist. The Ballymena Fraud. Now, to recap, DWP have invented a £7,390 debt for the lady who wasn't born in the UK, but she had been allowed to claim benefits because of domestic violence. She's having £81 a month deducted for this fake debt. We'd submitted a mandatory reconsideration and waited, and for a whole year they sat on it, and then they just changed the amount from 7,390 down to 5,007. Now, things got quite tough for this lady because her rent increased from $850 a month to $1,100. Now, she couldn't afford it, so she negotiated with her landlord to bring it down under the 1,000. But then following that, the landlord sent her a 56-day notice to quit. So she effectively became homeless, legally homeless, and had to find another house. That house came at a price because that was £1,300 a month. That was the cheapest house available in the area. So DWP actually only pay £925 rent. So effectively her rent was £375 a month more than the housing allowance component of Universal Credit. Anyway, so she was getting into deep poverty, and I got another phone call, right? And I went back through the Universal Credit journal, trying to find out why she was in so much trouble. And they were still taking, they'd actually gone up. They'd taken £93 a month instead of 81. Well, anyway, a mandatory reconsideration had been done, and they refused it again, and so we went to Citizens Advice. Well, we had a number of problems, debt problems, Universal Credit, housing benefit problem. They dropped a month's payment, They basically threw their hands up and said, sorry, one appointment, one problem, you know. But they did tell me to start a tribunal case. So we started the tribunal case. Now at this point, it took about a week to put the case together, get all the paperwork together. We uploaded all the documents and submitted the case. And you're supposed to get the DWP's response in a month. Well, 1 month came and went and nothing happened. So we waited another month and still nothing happened. So we escalated the case to ask the judge to make a direction. So anyway, as soon as that happened, DWP put their hands up, said, oh, you've won your case. She's entitled to all those benefits. Well, we knew that. But that didn't stop it there. So, anyway, I think that's that's for the next episode, isn't it? So, you just get the next episode tomorrow. I'm Tony, Ant News, Politics of Existing. And if you're to tune in tomorrow, you'll get the next episode in the DWP Ballymena Fraud. So, I'm Tony, Ant News. In the last episode of the Ballymena Fraud Case, I told you we won the DWP tribunal against a £7,300 debt. Well, that was a few months ago, and the clock is still ticking, and guess what? DWP have not paid back the money that they took off of this lady. So they owe her £1,518. And they also owe her compensation because that money was hers. And they took it away from her for 2 years. And in that time, she got made homeless. She's missed the funeral of her dad because she couldn't afford an air flight to go to the funeral. All the time they've got her money. Anyway, DWP, you think, oh well, we put a message on the journal. You know, we'd like to know the complaint process. Nothing, no reply whatsoever. We put another bit more pointed message on the journal. And again, nothing. And then we submitted a formal complaint. We found a complaint process in the end after quite a few phone calls and Googling. And we submitted that. And again, nothing. Nothing at all. So let's get this straight. DWP make a fake case saying that she's not entitled to benefits. Within 5 days, we put the correct information online to them, a letter from the Home Office saying this lady's entitled to the benefits. And they sit on it for a year, do a mandatory reconsideration and say, oh no, that's a load of rubbish, we're not paying you. And then when we go to the tribunal, they put their hands up and they get rid of the tribunal case by saying, oh yes, you're entitled to benefits. But they don't actually fix the problem. Now, they took 18 payments fraudulently of money that isn't theirs. And then they fraudulently tell the court, oh well, we're gonna put our hands up and sort this out, but they don't. So my question is, how do we solve this problem? Do we go down the fraud route? Do we go around the misconduct in public office route? Or do we ask, is it perjury telling the court that you're going to sort this out when you're not going to sort it out? The independent case examiner will eventually take this case on, but not until DWP have finished their apologetic decisions. Well, I can't even get them to start an inquiry of a complaint. So I'm wondering how we progress the Ballymena fraud case. So we are going to win against these people. I'm getting quite, I am getting frustrated with them because, quite honestly, I have wasted so much resources sorting this out. They have caused so much harm to the victim of this case, who is still £1,500 out of pocket, has been evicted from her home. I've had to lend her lots of money to secure another home. And quite frankly, if it wasn't for me, she'd be on the streets with her 2 children, who are supposed to be doing their A-levels, and their college courses. And so I'm gonna escalate this, and I'd be interested to see the feedback on where I should take this case. Anyway, I'm Tony, Ant News, the politics of existing, and join me for another couple of episodes in the future, hopefully, on this case, because I'm not giving up. We've fought this for 2 years. She's been fighting the domestic abuse case for 5 years. We don't give up. So anyway, I'm Tony, Ant News, signing out.